So, we have to dig a little deeper. Will a new fuel pump fix this Volvo? So, I got the left-hand side cover off, and this is where the little transfer pump lives, and the second sending unit, for the gauge. We have plenty of fuel, that's for sure. And there's the little yellow pickup to get gas from this side of the tank. And I think it's like a Venturi style, that secondary pump sends fuel through here and it sucks more fuel through that white little screen. So let's run the car, listen to the pump, and if the pump sounds like it's going to cavitate and speeds up and then the car stalls out, there's definitely a fuel pickup problem in the tank. Alright, car's running. Listen to that pump. Right there. It's sped up. Sounds like it's not pumping anything. Oh. It's gonna stall out soon. Meow. Very cool. So it's picking up air somehow. Is this pump salvageable? I don't want to order a new pump if it doesn't need one. Maybe there's some silly problem with like the pickup in the tank. I wish I had a diagram of the fuel lines, because there is a fuel filter, but it's a returnless system. But there are two lines going to that pump. That's why I don't understand. Okay, so strange situation here. My theory is the transfer pump is not filling the main bowl enough, and then the main pump starts for fuel. So we're just focusing on the transfer pump. Blue, black wires, right? So I have those adapted. I just want to manually energize the transfer pump and just observe what happens. So here we go. You hear it spinning. We're drawing about 2 amps. And if I unplug it, you can hear that something's like leaking down inside the tank. So it's trying to do something, but it's not filling that bowl. How do you explain that? And 3 pumps did the same thing? You could ask, is it possible that it's spinning backwards? Well, we can try reversing the polarity here. This is just power and ground, fused power and ground, and see if, what the amperage is. Okay, so you can hear it spinning faster. It's only drawing 1.5 amps, and there's no leaky sound at all. So I think it's connected fine. The polarity is correct. Something is still wrong. Let's try again. Correct polarity. Okay, so now I want to lift it up, just do a visual inspection on where that leaky dripping sound is coming from. Do we need a new pump or not? Is this one like clogged up? Maybe the pickup screen on the bottom of that suction transfer pump's messed up? A crazy Volvo. Alright, so here we go. We'll energize the transfer pump. You can see it's doing its thing. We got full flow going into the bowl. Nothing wrong with that. No air bubbles. About 2 amps. Okay. I don't know. Let's plug in the hoses, run this thing, and I really don't know what to say. Why would the main pump be running out of fuel to pick up? Alright, so next experiment. I got the fuel pressure gauge hooked back up. And I hooked it up to kind of like the pressure relief side. There's a spring-loaded valve in here. If the pressure goes above 80 psi, it'll dump it back into the tank. So this comes, it tees off of the fuel filter, you know, the pressure side. So it's just easier to put the pressure gauge there instead of teeing it in. So pressure, and then I have the amp clamp around the small blue wire going to that transfer pump. And we know about 2 amps is when it's pumping fuel and the flow is good. If the amperage drops, that means it'll start sucking air. So the conversion here is 1 amp is 100 millivolts on the meter. And let's just run it and see when the car starts stalling out and the pressure is dropping, does the transfer pump keep pumping gas? That's my question right now. Alright, here we go. So about 200 millivolts, transfer pump's doing its thing. We're at 55. Let's just run it for a few minutes, see what happens. Alright guys, it's starting to act up here after about 5 minutes of running. See that fuel pressure drops, and it kind of like boop, bounces back. Transfer pump is still 1.4 amps. So that pump is starving right now. Will it recover? Oh. That's when it's sucking fuel or air. You can hear it's like neat. Should stall out pretty soon here. Yep. Will it recover? That's too funny. That's the craziest fuel pump I've ever seen. The transfer pump, the current's still 1.5 amps. That's crazy. I want to pop that cap off, see if the transfer pump is still doing its thing. Alright guys, check this out. You can see the transfer pump is pumping right now. Right there. No pumping, no pumping. And look what's happening to our pressure. Why is the transfer pump not pumping? We know it's spinning. It's going to run out of pressure. Okay, let's shut the car off and energize the transfer pump manually. See why it's not doing anything. Alright, so now I'm just going to energize the transfer pump manually. You can see good flow. We're at 1.7 amps. I'm just going to let it run, see if it craps out. Because it did when the car was running. Oh, here we go, here we go. It's been about 3 minutes. You can hear the pump's kind of like starting to catch some air bubbles. Dropping a little bit. So I want to see that flow stop completely, and that's when the car will start to stall out. Because the secondary pump will also be starved for fuel very quickly. Because I think that primary pump feeds the secondary pump directly. It's not just passively drawing from the bowl. This is pretty nuts. Will a new fuel pump fix this problem? That's still my question. And guys, you can hear the little jet pump on the left side. If you lift it up a little bit, definitely sucking in some fuel. I'm going to just let it suck air. Here's some bubbles going through there. Alright, so now I'm going to run the transfer pump alone and see if it runs out of gas, because this problem only, it looks like it's only happening when the car's running, when the main pump is also pumping. So wherever the pickup is for the transfer pump, it might be the same place as the main pump. The internals of that module are not trivial, but just judging by the data, if the transfer pump's only losing flow when the car's running, when the main pump is running, then they have to be tied together there. Does this thing need a new fuel pump? I mean, everything's hooked up, right? It's just, but you tried 3 different pumps. How could they all have the same problem? All right, so my call is it needs a new fuel pump assembly. The gas tank's full of gas, and the pump is just, for some reason, cavitating. It could be a broken line in there, but it's all one unit. And this is a crossover year. So the owner said he tried, fuel pumps from the junkyard, questionable. And then he tried a brand new dealer pump. So I was looking online, and there's like 3 different types, the early model, then the 2-wheel drive model, then the late all-wheel drive model. And even if you go to the dealer by VIN, it's an incorrect pump. This is a late 2005, so they used the pump for the 2006 with 2 motors in the assembly. The earlier ones only had 1 motor in the assembly that acted, both as the transfer and the main pump. But this one has 2, and they both need to work, obviously, for the car to run. So I'm going to order probably a Bosch, or not even a Bosch. Bosch doesn't make this type. Delphi does, and I don't know. Or a Volvo OEM, but that's pricey. So that's my final call on this, and my work is guaranteed. So if I'm wrong on this diagnosis, you can't really send a fuel pump back, so I'll be eating some some cost. Yeah, let me get online, order one up, and we'll go from there. Back to the Volvo XC90 with the fuel pressure problem. From FCP Euro, we have an OEM Bosch pump, and quick visual inspection. This thing has 2 motors. This is identical to the one that's in the car, so I guess that's good. But let's swap it over. I don't see why this car wouldn't run just fine. Alright, so we got the seats out, and the trick is, on the driver's side, you want to loop. I just use a NICOP thin line. So when we pull this transfer tube through, we'll have a line, something to hook onto to pull the new one back into this side of the tank. Because otherwise, it can be a real nightmare. So the little level sensor is disconnected from our gauge. Let's get that side undone, pull the pump out, put the new one in. Alright, on the passenger side, you can see it's coming out, so the bowl is still full, but just keep it upright to prevent any leaking. And our lines, hopefully, are friendly. There we go. Just keep pulling that through. Oh gosh. There's a little transfer pump. And there's our metal line. Okay, let me set this down. The metal line's still sticking out over there. It's longer than I thought it would be. Just have to unhook it. Okay. Perfect. Got her out. All right, here's a brand new pump. I got the metal line hooked on there. So let's stuff it down in the tank and start pulling it through on this side. Oh no, did I lose it? No, it's right here. Let me finish that up, plug everything in, see if it runs. Now, is this tank dirty inside? Not necessarily, but the old pump, you can kind of see a whole bunch of garbage on the filter screen down there. It's like sludge or something. And I think both pumps draw from the same filter out of the bottom of the bowl. One's transfer pump to fill the bowl, the other one is the high pressure side. And if there's a restriction, neither pump will work. And that's exactly what we saw. The transfer pump stopped pumping, and the main pump lost pressure at the same exact time. So this new pump, it has to work at least for a while. All right, success on fishing the transfer lines through. Unhook that guy. Now we'll hook up our sending unit to the wires. There we go. Right here. Okay. Now this goes in here, then attaches to the little yellow transfer pump unit, like that. Okay, line goes in there. Not too bad. Close that up. Finalize the other side and fire this thing up and let it run. Place your bets now. Is the fuel pressure going to be maintained? My guess is it will be. But how can you have 4 bad pumps in a row, including one from the dealer? That just blows my mind. Okay. Alright, got this side plugged in. Plumbed in. Fuel pressure gauge right here. Place your bets now. What's going to happen? Let's prime it first. Go key on. Okay, got 25. One more time. Let's just run it. Very nice. We've never seen 70 psi before. Okay, dropping down to 60 to 55. Definitely doesn't drop like the old one did. I'm just gonna let it run here for 5 minutes. I think this issue should be fixed. Alright, so the Volvo ran for 15 minutes. No issues at all. The pressure was rock steady at 45 psi. Right now, hold pressure is 55 psi, so the pump is holding beautifully. Let's jump into the ECM, clear out the codes, and look at the fuel pressure desired and command. See what the duty cycle is of this new fuel pump. Okay. Data stream. Just type in fuel. Okay. Graph those. All right, let's fire it up. We'll look at our gauge. Yep, so it starts over 60. Then the fuel pump duty cycle should, look at that, 15%. So this new pump is doing amazing. It only needs 15% duty cycle to keep the pressure up at whatever, 70 psi. So at hot idle, it should drop to, I don't know, 60. And the gauge will actually show 45 because, you know, the two pressure readings, you have to consider atmosphere. When there's engine vacuum at the injectors, you have to add those 15 psi. So don't be worried that, you know, the gauge is 40 to 45. Our actual pressure is about 60, and the fuel pump duty cycle is 13%. So take a screenshot for the customer. This is what a known good fuel pump should look like. The old pump was always at 30% duty cycle, and it couldn't keep up the pressure. So let's do a couple snap throttles. See, the duty cycle goes up a little bit, and our pressure stays rock steady, about 45 psi. Okay, so I'm confident that problem is resolved. I can't take it for a test drive. It doesn't have any plates on it. That's another note to customers is whenever you bring your vehicle in, you at least want to have a good battery, and you want to make sure it's insured and registered and have some gas in the tank. That's all I can ask for. Our fuel gauge, I think, is pretty accurate. It has a little less than half a tank in it. That's reasonable. So, yeah. No problems. So in this case, the customer complaints were obviously low fuel pressure, wipers, wonky wipers, and airbag codes. So, you know, on this car, in this case, I'm gonna say pay up front for at least a fuel pump. You know, we installed a new fuel pump. That problem's resolved, and once that's paid off, then we can go further with, you know, additional diagnostics. So if there's a part 2, we'll be back. If the customer just wants to pick up his car, that's fine too. Thanks all for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Here's something cool that I noticed. Car is fully warmed up. If you rev it up, boom, and then it gently drops down. Now, is that good? See, the fuel pump duty cycle jumped up to 33% right there. Boom, you get 90 psi, and then it slowly drops down. I think that's normal. Now we're at 10%. If I just hold a boom. I think that's by design. It's interesting. Let's see, did we set any trouble codes? Nope, no trouble codes, so that the computer is actually commanding the fuel pressure to be a little higher after a snap throttle or something, just so the, I don't know, turbocharged strategy to prevent fuel boiling, whatever it's doing. But at a hot idle, you're at 45 psi. Interesting.